Now we're divided into threes. What psychology 300 is? So it was originally called criminal behavior. It was changed to social media. Well, I think it's good that you're exposed to more professors than just the three core criminal justice professors. I think that's a good thing. Right. I've asked them, if I stay on here, I've asked them to be a part of I either want to create a standalone forensics program, or I want to create a forensics concentration in criminal justice, one of the two. Yeah, I'd like to look at it because I think there's money for us to get here. I think we can have an equal and nicely bigger forensics lab. I think the money's here to do it. I just think we have to. I'd like to get I'd like to get a water tank and comparing microscopes so that you can compare the bullets. Right. But I think it would grow the program. I think it grow the program. In order to shoot those bullets to get a comparison, you have to fire into something that will damage the bullet. So, believe it or not, based on the efforts of World War II, they decided the best thing to shoot into was water. I couldn't believe it, but they said, and I was watching a special on that during World War II. On D-Day, when the American soldiers were jumping into the water, if that bullet would hit 24 inches or farther away, it lost enough momentum so that it wouldn't penetrate. 24 inches away from you in the water, it wouldn't penetrate. If it hit closer to 24 inches, it would penetrate. Maybe they did it for 2 years now. I don't know. I taught for 2 years. That was long. But you're teaching a whole different. The students who were in that forensics class, they weren't in criminal justice. I would have thought they would have been, but they weren't. They were all science majors. Pre-med people, yeah. Science and want to come with me? You know where to go? Can you folks in Beckley hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello, Beckley. Is Irma feeling any better?
I haven't slept on.
Well, when you did tell my, I
Slept yesterday.
you talk to him, tell him I asked about it, will you?
All right, I will.
I didn't bring any. That's not the right, we don't have the right class up on the board. I don't know what the problem is. We've got a split screen up there and none of the right class. I may or may not get the job from the ask one of the interviews. Well, I told that IBN and I'm licensed. But I did it the right way. They asked me, I said, look, IBN's an excellent idea, a good teaching tool. But you all have to get some up-to-date technology and change some things so it's not gonna work. You're not doing it the way it should be done. I don't think they like that, but it's true.
Is it in the interview?
Yeah. Well, they asked me, what, I can't lie. Well, it goes against my grain to send it to a lie.
Yeah.
No, I did it in a positive way, and I told them, I said, you know, IVN's opportunity, a real opportunity for this college to expand, grow, and do a lot of really positive things, but not the way it is now.
Yeah.
It's got to be updated, it's got to be modernized, it's got to be fixed. And so I think I was, you know, I was very brutally honest with them, but I put a positive spin on it, so I wasn't like I was just bashing it. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna lie to them, to tell them, oh, IVN's great, it's not.
I have a question.
Okay.
But what do you mean what the incident had behind it?
During class, I gave you all the top 4 incidences as far as casualties go for your bonus question. Remember I told you this incident was number 1, and this incident was number 2, and this incident was number 3, and this incident was number 4. He asked me the question. He was challenged off duty about it. And they told him that the numbers I gave wasn't right. They said the particular one that they were thinking of should have been number 1. And I said, no. We're not talking casualties. I'm not talking about deaths in that instance. I'm talking about deaths and wounded people. So deaths and injuries.
So in the list that you gave us, which one was it?
I want all 4.
All 4.
I gave you 4. I gave you the top one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. I want an order. I tell you what, if you put all 4 of them in any order, you're going to get some credit. If you put them in the right order, you get more.
More than 8?
No, possible 8. If you put them in the right order, you get 8 total points. If you just get them, you'll get 5 or 6.
What?
The bonus question.
It's just asking for one.
Is it just, that shouldn't be. It should say all 4. List them all 4 in order. I apologize. There is one other typo on here. Thank you for saying that. I want all 4 in order. And I have one other typo. Question 17. Answer B. Question 17, answer B says carries identification. I hit correct and I shouldn't, and it should say carries IEDs, not identification. most of it, the biggest part. I don't know, I don't think I did. Let me look at my backpack, I'll see what I find.
I brought a pen.
Let me dig in here and see, I don't think I got one, maybe, let me look.
You usually don't use it.
What's what? Yeah, I'm again, I'm a little upset. Cause this is not even the right class. They got me on a split screen and neither screen's the right class. Huh? No, they got me down to one screen, but still ain't the right room. Now they turned it off, maybe they're gonna find the right room. Somebody in Beckley must have said something. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, folks. There's no way this far into the semester something like that should happen.
No.
I hope.
Assume, does he normally go ahead and give it out, or?
He probably already has something.
Hey, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you.
There we are.
We just got connected. Do you want me to give the test out now?
Yes, ma'am. I got 2 updates I want to give you on the test.
Okay.
On the bonus question. The bonus question says that it's one example of the list of shootings that I gave you. I gave you a list of 4 shootings that had casualties. My bonus question is, give me the one.
We can't hear you.
Okay, Mr. Rasnick, for some reason you're cutting in and out. Now you're saying on the bonus question what?
Give me just a second. Let me turn these ACs off. All right. Hopefully can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. Them ACs make too much. The bonus question says, list the incident with the highest casualty rate as listed in your notes. Remember, I gave you all a list of casualties, of events that had the highest casualties, and I listed them in order. There were 4 of them. I did not mean to list the one that has the highest. I mean list all 4 of them in order. List them from highest to lowest. Remember, I said there were 4 that had very high casualty counts. So list them from highest to lowest. That's your bonus question. And I'm sorry that was a typo on my part. Now there is one more typo in there on question 17. Answer B. Should not say carries identification. It should say carries IEDs. Other than that, the test is good. Good luck. Hand them in when y'all get done and we'll cover a few notes.
So carry IEDs.
Adams, I don't mean to interrupt while we're testing, but do you have my exam schedule, or do you want me to send that to you sometime before we go home today?
I don't have it.
All right, I'll send it to you. I'll try to send it to you so you can be aware of what my exam schedule is gonna look like.
Okay.
The Wednesday night exam schedule shouldn't be difficult at all, because I just have the 2 students.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's orange.
It's orange.
Yeah, I don't want one.
You know, UT man, are you?
They're finished here, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. I still have a couple more on this end, Beckley, if you'll just give me a minute, we'll be finished in a little bit.
Mr. One. I forgot about, fortunate. That should have been one I knew. Oh, was it? I got 3 out of 4. That's not bad for not being here. I was like, that shooting's been on the news. I didn't. How do you have a hard time? You was here and I was, I thought it was all right. Well, that don't surprise me. He's not fast for you, man. Leave him alone. Too big. So what? Well, he ain't fit too. I was here, said he could do Crmj. What is it?
Tell me it's not. Cause usually you're all over that.
Anywhere I can cheat to get there.
Don't you get married, you'll cheat on your wife.
Yeah, I've done it too.
You tell her before you get married, maybe she won't marry you.
Mm-mm.
Next questions are very easy this week.
Go for my birthday next week.
Sure.
Wasn't it good?
I'm good. They just wouldn't go well with my coffee.
I'm not chocolate caramel.
Coffee. Tell us that. I need some coffee. No, yeah, I had one this morning. Stop.
It'd be really cool. I was on my way home.
You want to be happy about that.
What? I would like to avoid it right now.
I have another test today.
Did you get this this morning?
No, I don't want to warn it. I ain't gonna get this one, I think.
I took it. Did you? Mm-hmm. About like you expect. No surprises, I promise. Did he ask you anything about Beyonce's album on?
21st.
Shot you guys, man. Did you? I thought I had a phone answer.
Gained a whole nother year of age today.
Good.
When's your birthday?
First,
Is that where you're going to Donald's?
Yeah, that's my one year old, so that's the birthday.
oh, yeah, man.
Holy cow. Wow. Let's see, where is your test paper? I'm just kidding. That hurt. I hope y'all didn't hear that. She just asked me if I was 60 today. Oh my God.
That's tough.
I'll admit to 33.
So he looks 25.
No. I'll admit to it though. If you want to believe I'm 33, I'll be 33.
You can pass it.
Huh? All day long.
Somebody already trying to get them.
Can I get text requests
Fantastic
to come
people,
up
boy.
with?
Tyrant born tomorrow. I'm glad today's ours, not tomorrow. Who was born yesterday? Oh, I thought he was born tomorrow. That's who I was thinking about. I thought he was born on the 22nd.
Man, I ain't been here. I ain't got time to download nothing.
Someone down there have a birthday yesterday?
No, I've got one today.
I had one yesterday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. I also have another class member here who had a birthday today, shares a birthday with me. There's a lot of really smart, beautiful people born this week, apparently.
Yeah, my birthday was Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations to all of you.
Okay.
I told them I would admit to being 35.
I'll admit to being 39,
There you go.
because
I'm
that's
really-
how old I am.
Well, I'm really not 35, but I'll own it. I'll be 35. Actually, I'm pretty happy. I'm 45 today, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Turned 37.
I'm 39.
Where is Springdale?
Springdale, Virginia.
Oh, Virginia?
360
McDonald's got a rest.
They run out of something terrific for it.
That's what they say, so, yeah. I'm still in the 20s, that's why everything's so large.
Go back to
They've
Go back to Ireland.
cheating out of like 50 cents or something.
Right.
I'll be living out in Colorado, so I just might.
Today, just to tell you all, because I heard it on the radio coming to work while he's finishing up the test. On the way to work this morning, I heard that in somewhere in Oklahoma City, there was a man walked into an Arby's and told them he was from the future, and there was no Arby's in the future, and he needed some food to take back with him so he could show society what Arby's used to be like.
Nice.
Tell a story. What I do best. And he consequently took food, kicked the glass out of the front of the door, the entrance to the door, and when he got into the parking lot, he kicked a door of a vehicle sitting there about 5 or 6 times before he proceeded across the parking lot into the shade to eat his sandwiches that he had stolen out of the window at Arby's. What's going on there, ladies and gentlemen?
He's either on drugs or he has mental problems.
Right. Is there any opportunity he really came from the future?
No.
As police, right, Kenny, right, we don't know that. As police officers, how do we, and this is the question I wanted to get to. As police officer, you get called, dispatched to that scene. When you pull up on this gentleman, how do you open a conversation with him?
Ask him how his sandwich is.
That's where I would start. Good thinking. That looks good. Right? I start out in a very non-threatening manner, right? Because if he does have mental problems and you ask him, what are you doing, stupid? How does that, I mean, what happens to him at that point?
Yeah. He gets irate.
Yeah.
Right, he goes out of control.
I was gonna say, I would be like, well, when are you thinking about traveling back to the future?
Well, but you don't know that at this point. All you know is that some
Oh,
guy
okay,
came in
I
and
got
took sandwiches and walked out.
Okay, gotcha.
And you see him sitting in the shade. As a police officer, you don't know that he
But
told him
did
he
you
was from
lead
the
it up to
future.
that point of him, like,
He hungry.
Absolutely. Now, if he's gone, you go in and interview the staff and find out what he said and what he did. But when you roll up and he's sitting there in the parking lot, you don't necessarily need to go in because you see him sitting there eating those sandwiches and you look at the manager and the manager's sitting there staring at you to see what you're gonna do. And you go like, is that him? And he's like, yeah, that's him, that's him. And so you go over and engage him. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you don't necessarily want to walk up to everybody you encounter, even if you know that they committed a crime, and start off on a negative foot. Like you said, how's the sandwich? Are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you have a drink? Where's your drink? And you start off by trying to establish a rapport with him. Because easy enough, if he's high, easy enough, you're going to be able to determine that pretty quick and take him to jail. But the other counterpart to that is he's probably got some sort of serious mental problem, right? He's probably checked off the reservation. And the last thing you want him to do is go manic.
I wonder if the person is high, we pick them up, and you can tell because they've done some weird things like that. What exactly happens when they get back to jail? Do they test them for whatever, give them like a panel test of some sort?
It depends on what the crime is. Now, in this instance, if he goes to court, I mean, if you arrest him for that and he comes to court, the fact that he's high doesn't play a role at all. Nobody cares. You can't use being high as a criminal defense. Yes. But that's, well, they can, but they're not going to. They can't, I mean, why would I test you for appearing in basically it's the catch-all charge that we talked about months ago, appearing in public in an intoxicated condition, which is a very low-level crime. I'm not gonna charge you with that. I'm gonna charge you with robbery, or some type of theft. I'm gonna charge you with destruction of property, 2 or 3 counts. I may charge you with assault, depending on how you acted when you went in there, if you hit anybody. And I might even charge you with kidnapping, depending upon what you said to the staff, if they felt like they weren't free to leave. So you've got several felonies there, so possession at that point is kind of a moot point.
You
see what I'm saying?
wouldn't even advance that?
No, I wouldn't even fool with that. I get him on the felonies and rock on, I wouldn't even play for him as misdemeanor. Because what happens is, when you go into court, any reasonable judge, and you've charged him with the serious crimes, the judge looks at it as though you've done a really good job. But if you charge him with the serious crimes and then tack on about 14 little petty things, the judge will go, officer, what are you trying to do here? What point are you trying to make? Do you not like this guy or something? I mean, there's a point where you're not doing your job, it's overkill. See what I'm saying? Now, they probably wouldn't say that in open court, but they would. I had a colleague that got called in, and the judge told him, look, you need to cool it. Charge the appropriate crimes and charge the the major crimes that they do. But quit tacking on all these little petty things at the end. You know, it's kind of overkill. Now, if the prosecuting attorney wants to tack those on, that's his business or her business. Let them tack them on. But as police officers, we want to stick to the stuff that's appropriate. We don't want to get the court bogged down in these little minor petty offenses. Make sense?
It does, Google. I'm curious, what if the person hasn't committed a crime other than being stoned out of the court walking around? Is it often that police officer will arrest that person? Or
Just depends on the situation. A lot of times, especially in Virginia, yeah, you probably won't get it. West Virginia, not maybe so much, but you still go to jail if you're being a nuisance. West Virginia charges people with disorderly conduct.
Okay.
Virginia does not so much. We charge people with drunken public and just get them out of the way. West Virginia tends to leave them alone until they become a nuisance. And then they charge them with a crime, the misdemeanor of disorderly conduct.
If they're high on drugs, it's not going to be drunk in public. It's going to be something else.
Drunken public's catch-all.
If they were being a nuisance, they would take the station at that point.
In West Virginia, they call it public intoxication.
Right, and you don't test them. It doesn't matter. The way the code section's written, it doesn't matter whether they're high or drunk.
Oh, I didn't.
They're impaired. That's all you have to prove.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, it's such a low-level crime. We're not spending money to test,
I understand.
right?
Well, and I actually had a cop tell me a couple weeks ago that if someone's drinking a bunch of energy drinks and are jittery from it, they can actually take them to jail for that, even
Right.
charge them DUI for that.
Right. Yeah. All you have to do is prove impairment. With the way the way the laws are written, both for intoxicated in public or drunk in public and DUI, what you have to prove is impairment. Impairment from what is I don't want to say irrelevant, because that's not true and accurate. It is relevant. But impairment from what is not as important as you are impaired. That's what you have to prove. That's the threshold that you have to push. And so on these low-level offenses like drunk in public and intoxicated in public and whatever, they're not going to spend money on test kits or run tests. They don't care what the substance is. You're impaired, you're going to jail. Now, know that you have a threshold to prove impairment. And if you don't prove impairment, they're not going to lock the person up. They're not going to stamp okay on the charge. I'll give you all a prime example. I did some Dirty Harry policing back in my day, and I'm ashamed to tell you all this, but I did it. One Halloween several years ago, it was cold. God, it was cold. I guess it was probably 29 or 30 degrees. There was a west wind blowing, and we were getting rain and snow mixed at the time. It was probably 11:30 on Halloween night. Or maybe Halloween was on Friday and this was on Saturday. Maybe it was the next day. But whatever it was really cold. And dispatch said, called me by my car number and said, will you call me? I need to tell you something. And I said, all right. Well, back in those days, there wasn't no such thing as cell phones. You had to stop somewhere and either use a business phone or use a payphone. So I stopped in at a payphone, crammed the money in and called them. They said, look, there's an individual who is homeless at a particular closed convenience store out in your community. He says he's freezing to death. And I need you to ride over and check on him and see what's going on. Well, when I got over there, the guy was transient. He'd been a traveling kind of guy. And he was wet. He didn't have a dry stitch on him. He had a duffel bag over his back. Everything in the duffel bag was wet. The wind was blowing. He was shivering. I put him in the car, and I began to try to find some resources for him, homeless shelters, anything. Well, in Tazewell at that time, there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything. There wasn't anywhere I could put him. He had nowhere to go that I could get him out of the weather. I did know that he needed something because he hadn't eaten in 2 or 3 days, and he didn't have a dry stitch of clothes on him. So I suggested this to him. I said, look, the only opportunity I got to get you a warm bed for the night, and I'll get all your clothes dried, and I'll give you some clothes to wear while I'm drying your clothes, is I'm going to arrest you and take you to jail for drunk in public. It's a $25 fine, which you don't ever pay because you pack your stuff tomorrow and leave, and they're not ever going to hunt for you. They don't care. And I'll go get you a meal tonight. They'll serve you breakfast in the morning, and I'll get all your clothes dried in the clothes dryer up at the jail. And he said, would you do that for me? And I said, yes, I will. Will you agree to that? And he said, yeah. So I arrested him for drunk in public. I brought him up in front of the magistrate, and I told him before we went into the magistrate, I said, now look, you got to act a little drunk. If you go in there stone cold sober, just shivering, he's not going to arrest you, and you don't get to go to jail, and I don't get to help you. And he said, okay, I will. So he went in there and started talking crazy. And the magistrate turned his back, went around a corner, and I elbowed him, and I said, dude, I told you to be drunk, not crazy. And he said, okay. So he started acting even better and went drunk. They arrested him, put him in jail for the night. When I got him up to the jail, I had the trustees fix him an evening meal. I also had the trustees take and dry his clothes. And the next morning, he got out, he ate breakfast, and then he got out and went on his merry way, and I never saw him again. So, you know, I did some wrong things for the right reasons, but I told you all that because he got down there in front of that magistrate, was acting crazy, not drunk. And when I finally got him away from the magistrate said, well, he might have been a little drunk, but he was crazy too. And I thought, well, the magistrate apparently knew what I was doing and had some compassion on the guy too, right? Because the magistrate could have very easily said, he ain't drunk, turn him loose. Now, did that cost us some money as a county? Yeah. Was it ethical? You know, probably not. But
It depends on what side you're looking at it through there.
right. I mean, I went to bed that night knowing that guy might have froze to death if I left him out there because he was on the edge of hypothermia. He really was. And so I told you all that story just to tell you that there's a lot of checks and balances. Just because you get arrested for, or you arrest somebody for something, or you get arrested for something, there's some checks and balances along the way of people who have to make sure of what's going on with you, right? All right, Kenny, come on back in. And if those checks and balances aren't in place, maybe you stay in jail and languish forever, but the checks and balances are there and you don't stay in jail very long. And so it's not as important what you're impaired on, just that you are impaired. I've seen DUIs get kicked out where the guy blew, his breathalyzer was above the legal limit, but the officer couldn't prove impairment. It's much easier to do now that we have video cameras, but back in the day before video cameras, you had to be able to testify how he was impaired. Make sense?
What if he's above the legal limit, but he's not impaired? He's a working alcoholic or whatever.
Functioning alcoholic?
Situation, yeah.
You have to be able to prove impairment.
Okay.
It comes down to that. Now, is the judge probably going to find him guilty? In most cases, everything slants toward the state, and he's probably going to be found guilty. But I have seen officers lose it because they couldn't prove impairment. It just depends on the judge's frame of mind and their attitude. The core of that code section says you have to prove impairment. But I promise you, I don't care if he's a functioning alcoholic or not. If you give him this test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, drunk guy can't do that.
I can barely do it sober.
That's right. Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What about that ABCs backwards? Is that still commonly used?
No, because I can't do ABCs backwards when I'm sober, let alone if I'm drunk. Yeah, no, it's impossible. The only other test that I like to do, and if you've had 2 or 3 beers, this gets you every time. And that's count from 37 to 27 backwards. I want you to count from 37 to 27 backwards. If you're sober, you understood those directions. I'm gonna start at 37. I'm gonna count backwards. When I get to 27, I'm gonna quit. People can't do that when they're drunk. They get to 27, they say 26, 25, 24, they just keep right on going. And there's one more stumbling block in there. When you get to 30, to make the transition from 30 to 29 drunk, that's a barrier. You can't do it. Sober, it's not too bad. You're like 30, 29, 28. But when you've had a beer or two and you just got that little buzz going, you go 30, and then you want to say 31 every time. People say 30, 31, I mean 29. You stumble right there about every time. So you don't have to prove massive impairment, just impairment. All right. We've been talking about the media, and I want to finish up today, this week's class, talking about media and discussing some more. We're going to finish it up next week, but I wanted to wrap up some of this, or try to tie it all back together that we started on Tuesday. The power of the media is great. And there are about 4 or 5 things here I want to talk to you about that the media has power over. I'm walking on the screen, it's pissing me off. The media has the ability to create an event. The media has the ability to create an event. And I'll give you an example of that here shortly. I have a good example of it. Huh? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. I can give you one even more applicable, or even not more applicable, but newer than H.G. Wells. Y'all know about the War of the Worlds, right? H.G. Wells? Y'all all heard of that experiment. And that is one of the opportunities to talk about how the media can create an event. I also have an opportunity for the media to create another event, which is a little more modern. It's not quite as old as the H.G. Wells story. They can aid in rescue operations. Aid in rescue operations. They can prejudice the outcome of events. They may exaggerate or sensationalize news that affects public perception. They may exaggerate or sensationalize news that affects public perception. their rapid response to events can complicate law enforcement's ability to control a situation. Now, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm withholding judgment. But the one incident of that I can see that happened not long ago was the reporter from CNN. I believe his name is Jack Lemmon, who was in downtown Ferguson, and who ended up getting injured in those riots because he got too close. He didn't respond to police instructions. He thought he was immune because he was part of the media. And the next thing you know, he's covered in pepper and OC because he won't comply. His rapid response to those riots and wanting to cover those riots up close got him into some trouble. He ended up not getting arrested, but it certainly would have been well within their preview to have arrested him at that point.
Can you repeat the one about exaggerate news?
Yes, I can. They can exaggerate and sensationalize news and alter public perception. In today's society, the news media plays a significant role in shaping popular views. Cable TV or cable news is the top source for all Americans since 9/11 across all demographics. Since 9/11, cable is the top source of news for all Americans across all demographics. Second, believe it or not, is talk radio. Talk radio. I was surprised when I got those statistics. First cable, second talk radio. You know what my second would have been? My guess? Close to social media, internet, yeah. Whether it's cable news via the internet or other social media, that would have been my second.
By talk shows, they refer to like NPR, like Howard Stern.
But all lump them all together. They lump Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and NPR and all the other, Howard Stern, all of that, I'll lump them all together. Must be. That's what shocked me about the whole thing.
What was the first thing you said before 9/11?
Oh, the media plays a significant role in shaping popular views. The media plays a significant role in shaping popular views. Cable's the top. Talk radio's the second. Third is the internet. Fourth is religious radio. Now, having said that, fifth place, and a distant fifth place, is going to be what? The only one I've left out.
Newspaper.
Print media, newspapers, good.
What was third?
Third is the internet. Print media has fallen behind. It's not. Its Achilles heel is all of these others can be very instant, right? All the top four are very instant. We can come live on the radio. We can come live on the TV. We can post that on the internet in a very short few minutes. Print media only comes out once a day, once a week, once a month. It's always a little bit late, and that's what's killing print media. the public has about equal confidence in the government and the press. Generally speaking, the people have about as much confidence equally in the government and the press.
For you to mention the two, clump them together.
Before our recent gridlock in Washington and before our recent dysfunction, it probably was in the 40 or 50% range. I would say it's probably lower now. When this came out, this is probably, 3, 4, 5 years old, the information that I'm giving to you. And when this was published, before the crash of the general opinion of our government by most people, they were 40, 50%, so it was pretty good. It wasn't as bad as what it would be now. So, you take all of the information that I've just given you kind of together, and I want to give you a couple of examples. You see, the media is kind of a double-edged sword for police. It's both an opportunity and a threat. It's both an opportunity for the police to inform, to educate, to work with the press, but it's also a double-edged sword because oftentimes what happens when the press sensationalizes a story or don't get the information necessarily from the police that they want, they can tend to create public opinion the other way on an event, so it works against the police departments and the police in that aspect. I want to give you a quote by Walt Seifert. Walt Seifert said something I think is very, very interesting and very applicable. Walt Seifert said, "The United States Supreme Court is not the highest court in the land." Walt Seifert said, "The United States Supreme Court is not the highest court in the land. The highest court is the court of public opinion. The highest court is the court of public opinion, which meets every hour." What does that mean?
It means public opinion will change things more than anything, and every time the news is on, they're getting a new look at it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I like what both of you had to say. Basically, the news media, we talk about news media cycles through every 30 minutes, every hour. Everything changes. The internet updates itself on a regular basis, and every hour you can reconvene to that court of public opinion. Now, the people who are going to shape that public opinion are the people who's putting information in these stories. And sometimes that restricts us as a police department. Let me ask you this as we move forward and you think about this. You're the chief of police for a major department. You have a police shooting. An officer is involved in a shooting where an individual gets killed. And let's take all of anything that could be exacerbating circumstances out of it. Let's say we don't know what race the officer is. We don't know what race the shooter, the victim was. We don't know what community it was in. All we know is that the officer may or may not have been justified in doing that shooting. What's the first step we as the chief of police have to take? Well, we're going to give him a leave of absence. During that leave of absence, what are we going to do?
Investigate.
Say it again?
Investigate.
We're going to investigate it. Now, depending upon how we're set up and as chief of police, we're probably not gonna wanna investigate our own shooting. What are we gonna put together to come in and investigate it? Task force, an independent group, an outside group, right? To come in and investigate this shooting. Now, if you're gonna go to all this trouble to put together this outside task force or this outside investigative team to come in and do the investigation, would it be prudent for you to comment before the investigation's complete?
No.
Yes or no? Y'all looking at me, yes or no?
No.
As the chief of police, should you get on the news media and say anything until the investigation's complete? No, you shouldn't. And that's right. That's the right thing to do. That's the right way to handle it. That's what should be done. In the meantime, who is going to be on TV? Yeah, who's going to be on CNN? Who's going to be on there?
Your police officer that did shoot?
No, absolutely not.
The victims of
The victim's family, right? The victim's family going to be on TV. And they're going to be talking about what an injustice and how it's wrong and it's a setup and the police did it and they knew he wasn't armed and it was an unjustified shooting and he was a good family man. You know, these investigations, they're not short. To do a thorough shooting investigation might take 6, 8, 10 weeks to do the investigation properly. And at the end of that time, what's happened with this court of public opinion? Officer's mud, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you a prime example of that. The shooting in Ferguson. While there was systemic racial overtones in Ferguson, the shooting in Ferguson was justified. The young man did charge him twice. That's what got him killed. However, by the time the investigation showed that he was justified his actions, the court of public opinion said what? He's through.
He's guilty. They had
Yeah.
already fired him, everything.
Crucified.
Right. He's had to move. He's also had to change his name. And he didn't do anything illegal. So the court of public opinion has a huge amount of power. And the system is not set up to be necessarily conducive to silence even when it's appropriate. Because the news media has a driven interest in creating a story, following the story, sensationalizing the story, and driving the ratings, right? So as we talk about that, I want to throw this up on the document camera if I can get this thing on.
I remember in a class a while back, somebody asked us where we all got our news media sources from. And seems like everybody's answer was pretty much wrong because it was biased in one way or another. But the instructor never gave us where he got his. Where do you get yours? What do you find is the most trustworthy news source? Less biased.
Well, there aren't any that aren't biased. What I do whenever I look is I try to keep an open mind and I try to look at a variety. I look at CNN, I look at headline news, I look at Fox News, and I watch MSNBC. Now, of those, 2 of them are very liberal, 1 of them is very conservative, and 1 of them is kind of middle of the road. And I look at all of them, and I look at that, and then I'm trying to look at a couple different sources on the internet too during the day as I'm going through the day. And I read the articles, and I keep an open mind, and I listen to the stories and keep an open mind. And at the end, I compile that information on those situations together and try to draw my own conclusion. One of the things that you have to do when you're talking about news media, one of the things you have to do, there we go. Bethany, can you all see that to read it at all?
Nope.
No.
That's what I'm working on. I know how to do it. Now what?
We can see it, but we can't read it.
Tell me you can't. So I'll read it to you as we go. As a result of that, I try to put all of those sources together and kind of draw my own conclusion, realizing that everybody's going to put their own slant on whatever it is they do. So now, I put this up here because here is a table that kind of gives you an idea about the competing interests of the government, the media, and in this instance, the terrorists. So the government being the police, Everybody's taking pictures.
Yeah, savage.
The government being the police department, the media, and their interest, and then like the terrorist over here. And I wanted to use this because this works in a lot of different situations. This could be the family of a shooting victim. So over here on the left, the government wants to advance their agenda and not that of the terrorist or not that of the victim of the crime. The media wants to be the first with the story. They got to break it. They want to be first. Accuracy, not so much. First, absolutely. Right? And the terrorists, they want to publicly create fear and panic and mass hysteria. Government, separate the terrorists from the media. The media, they want to make the story as timely and dramatic as possible. Accuracy and truth, not so much. Drama, absolutely. The terrorists want to promote a propaganda and a favorable understanding of their case. The government wants to have the media the government wants to have the media present the terrorists as criminals. That happens in just about every case, terrorist or not. When you are the chief and your officer's been in a shooting, you want the media to present the victim of that shooting as the criminal that he or she was that got shot, not as, a guy who sat on the front pew of church and sang every Sunday, because that's not what he was doing when he got shot. Now, occasionally, police screw up, but by and large, no. The media wants freedom to cover this issue without external restraint. And then the terrorists want to legitimize what's often portrayed as ideological or personality feuds or divisions between groups and political wings. The government wants the news organizations to provide information to authorities. The media, be professional and accurate. See how far down their list that is? Terrorists seek media coverage that causes harm to the enemy. The government wants controlled terrorist access to outside media, and the media wants to protect the ability to operate in security and as secretly as possible. They don't want to have to reveal their sources. And terrorists then seek to control smaller news medias. That was the only reason Al Jazeera TV, y'all heard of them?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I was not a fan of Al Jazeera TV is because I felt like that there are certain terrorist organizations. Al Jazeera opened an American office here. And the only reason I was not a fan of that is because I felt like Al Jazeera has always had a certain number of terrorists on their payroll financing their television. Al Jazeera could be a good news organization, especially for the goings on in the Middle East, except they are so biased and they are so very careful not to report anything that makes any of these terrorist organizations look bad. All right, that's what I wanted you to see there. Becky, were you all able to copy what I did?
Excuse me? We couldn't hear you.
I say, were you able to at least follow along with what I did, even though you couldn't read it?
Yeah, we could hear you.
All right. Let me get the right camera back. In Philadelphia, in the 1980s, Philadelphia police chief issued or began a program of community policing. The commissioner described it as an openness of information sharing between the police, the community, and the news media. They say their public complaints have gone down. And that their partnership with the media synchronized a systemic environment when reacting to a crisis. I'm going to read you that again. I know that was a lot of information. They say that their information sharing between the police and community have reduced public outcries and complaints, and that their partnership with the media to create a synchronized, systematic environment, in reacting to a crisis has resulted in positive public response. Let me read it again. All right. The police confirmed that their partnership with the media to create a synchronized and systematic environment in reacting to crisis incidents have resulted in positive public response. It is currently being used as a template in other departments. Now, it's almost 15 after. I'm going to have to stop there for the day. Any questions? All right. I'll grade the test and I'll see everybody on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Be safe.
You do the same.
Say again? I am allergic to sweat. I used to love, let me tell you something. When I was young,
I'm gonna get up on this.
Look,
I'm great all of it.
Person who, when we get done in stretching lanes, my jersey's already stuck on it.
Yeah, I don't do that. Well, I used
Helping
to.
some, but not a whole lot. Like,
Yeah, they ain't no way to help in this class.
That walk cycle quote, I think that's Aristotle.
Say that what?
That walk cycle quote, I think it's one, that's Aristotle.
Cause so is who?
Aristotle.
Really?
Yeah.
They gave me credit for it in the stuff I read.
From the old Greece, you know, they had that full on democracy back in the day. You know, the people's court, I've heard him say that before.
Maybe, and in the work I did, they gave him credit for repeating it.
Well, I mean, you probably put it in our lanes things.
I saw a guy who had gotten in trouble recently with a shooter and got shot down by police, I guess it was. I didn't know the whole story, but they showed a picture that was posted of him for the news media that they had posted. And in the picture, he was 12 years old. And he was graduating grade school or high school or whatever. I don't know. It was some kind of, he was all dressed up. And then they showed his actual Facebook photo that was current, his profile picture. And it was him covered in gang tattoos with a stack of money and a bunch of guns. And I was like, wow. You know, he was 17 when he committed the crime, but the news media really portrayed him as a 12-year-old kid looking.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about, I know who you're talking about now. You're talking about that, the kid that was in Florida or Detroit? Where was he at?
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah,
dramatic.
gold team.
Yeah, all kinds.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
But every time the media showed him, they showed him a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, well, that's a little child.